Good day, everyone. So, welcome to the second part of our lecture series on grammar review. For this lecture series, what we'll be focusing on is on the pronoun antecedent agreement, or the agreement between the noun and its pronoun. So, there is a need for us or for you to be particular with on how to use the correct pronoun in order for you to identify the proper usage of pronoun in a given statement or in a sentence as you converse or as you write your your paper or your articles. So let me share you my screen. Okay, so before we oops. Okay, let me share you stop this screen. Okay, so I will be showing you here some of the items. What I would like you to do is try answering the following items. So you can just jot down your answer on a piece of paper and let us see if you get it correctly. So it's only just a brief review if you really remembered things about the use of proper pronouns. So let's have the first one. My wife and I, me, myself, have tickets to the submarine races tonight. So what is your answer? Okay. So the correct answer is I. You got it correctly. So let's proceed on our second example, our second item rather. It's he, him, who left the laundry out in the rain. Okay, so what is your answer? It is he. Are you getting it correctly? Okay, so let's now proceed on the next item. We surprised Rudolph and she, her, with a gala anniversary bash. So the correct answer is her. Next is my grandfather left most of his money to a home for wayward dentists. The rest went directly to my daughter and I, me, myself, which is the correct pronoun. Should be me. So those are only some of the instances wherein we have to use the pronoun correctly. So how was it? What is your score? Okay, so before we move on the detailed discussion of using the pronoun correctly, let's have first to have a recap of the different personal pronoun case forms because there is a need for you to be particular of the different personal pronoun case forms in order for you to use the appropriate or the correct pronoun as we go through with our discussion. So for the personal pronouns, so the personal pronouns is categorized into three functions. Pronoun may function as subjective, objective, and possessive. So what is subjective? It means to say that the pronoun functions as the subject of the sentence. So subject of the sentence, it performs the action. Okay, so objective function states that these pronouns receive the action if the subjective function suggests that the pronoun performs the action. The objective function suggests that it is receiving the action. However, when we talk of possessive pronoun, it functions from the term itself, possessive possession, or suggests ownership of something. Ownership of something. So, among the subjective pronouns are as follows: I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. For objective pronouns, these are me, you, him, her, it, us, them. For possessive is my, mine, your, yours, his, hers, her, its, our, ours, their, and theirs. Then we also have relative pronoun case forms, which also functions as subjective, objective, and possessive cases or functions. For subjective, we have who and whoever. For objective, we have whom and whomever. And possessive, we have whose and whosoever. Let's say, for example, I handle the English class. I handle the English class. So I handle. So I perform the pronoun I perform the action handle. I handle. So for objective case is this book is for me. For me. This book is for me, which suggests that the book is for me, which is objective, which wherein I own the book. Okay, it's given to me by someone else. Okay, so we'll be dealing with those functions of pronoun as we go through with our lecture, because again it's very important that you will be particular of the relationship of the subject and the pronoun in a sentence. So correct usage of pronoun. So the first one is, it was me, who ate the entire bag of potato chips while you were out. What do you think is the correct pronoun? So the correct answer is I. Subject form of pronoun is used after verb was or were. So if a word if a pronoun is preceded by is, was, were, and are, or was in general, so we are using the subjective form. Let's say it is I or it was I. Okay, so it is wrong to say it is me. So it was me. So we have to use subjective pronoun I for this statement. So it was I, not it was me. It's incorrect. Next is Aunt Dorothy left her collection of wrestling memorabilia to David and I and me. To David and I and me. So which do you think is the correct pronoun? So the correct answer is me, as in to me, an indirect object of left. Okay? So the technique there is that if it is preceded by a preposition, we are always using the objective form, just like to me, wherein it is introduced by the preposition to. So the correct answer is me. For example, for a further explanation, objective form of pronoun is used in prepositional phrase like to me, where to is the preposition and me as the object of the preposition, just like what I mentioned to you a while ago. So the technique there is that you really need to identify if it is a preposition and it is followed by an object. So usually the object of the preposition is expressed in objective form. That is why we use me instead of I. To David and me. So it's incorrect to say to David and I. It's incorrect. Is it to I? Does that sound good? Next is between you and I, me. Angela's grammar leaves a great deal to be desired. Between you and I, me. Angela's grammar leaves a great deal to be desired. The correct answer is me. Once again, uh, between is a preposition, and according to our previous discussion or previous rule, we say that the object of the preposition of between must use the objective form of pronoun. Hence, we use me instead of I, because I is subjective and me is objective. So it's correct to say between you and me, but not between you and I. That is incorrect. Although it sounds good, you and I, between you and I sounds good. But following the rule, it has to be between you and me. Because again, the explanation is that we are using objective form for an object of the preposition. Alan was having lunch with Anne and I and me when he heard the news. Which do you think is the correct pronoun here? So the correct answer is me. Why? Because again, we use the preposition with. Again, me is the object of the preposition with. So with Anne and me. It is introduced by the preposition with. So that's your clue. How about this one? Warren and I, me, haven't spoken since our argument 10 years ago. Okay, the correct answer here is I, because Warren, which gives us an idea that it performs or it functions as subject, performs the subject, performs the action haven't, suggests that it is a subject. So therefore, to make it parallel or consistent, we use the subjective I. Okay, Warren and I haven't spoken. Again, I performs the function haven't spoken. They gave Adam and I, me, heavy duty umbrellas when we moved to Seattle. So which do you think is the correct pronoun? So the correct answer is me. Why? Because it follows this subject, transitive verb, objective formula. Gabe here is the indirect object of me is the indirect object of Gabe because me receives the action Gabe. Okay, so that's the technique there. So me is the indirect object of Gabe because me receives the action Gabe. Okay, they gave what? Heavy duty umbrellas for whom? For me. Okay, okay, so that's how we analyze it. They gave uh, heavy duty umbrellas for whom? For Adam and for me. For me. For is preposition. Then that gives us a hint that we need to use objective form. He is not picky. He is dating not only Jill but also Frederica, Caroline, and I or me. Okay, the correct answer is me. Because again, me is the direct object of the phrasal verb is dating. Is dating whom? Me. Is dating whom? Me. Okay, so direct object of the phrasal verb is dating. Again, to check that one is he is dating whom? Dating me. Okay, then next we have their versus them. Everyone in the house heard me singing in the shower. Everyone in the house heard my singing in the shower. So take note of the two examples. Me heard me singing, heard my singing. Which one is correct? Okay, actually both are correct because the pronoun depends on what the speaker wants to emphasize. Sometimes there's no cut and dried correct choice. It's entirely up to the speaker. Let's say, for example, let's uh, analyze these two examples. Everyone in the house heard me singing in the shower. So meaning to say, uh, the the action here heard heard who me heard whom me. Okay, okay. So suggesting that there's someone receiving the action me singing in the shower. However, for this one, we are pertaining to this as one entity. What do you mean by one entity? Ownership. Someone sings, owned by someone who sings the song. Okay. Everyone in the house heard my singing in the shower. My singing. Okay. We are pertaining to the ownership of the song. The song, someone who sings the song. Okay. My singing. Okay. So again, that depends on what the speaker wants to emphasize. So on the first one, you're emphasizing the person me performing or singing the song. On the second one, you are emphasizing uh, the sung by someone, something like that. Okay, so again, both are correct. Both are correct statements. That depends on the what is being emphasized by the speaker. How about this one? Yes, this is her who's calling. Let's say, for example, you're calling a phone. Let's say, who is this? Is this Chris? You say, yes, this is her who's calling. Or, yes, who is this? Is this Chris? Yes, this is she who's calling. So which do you think are the correct statement? It is, this is she. Okay, it's the same. It applies on the first rule that we mentioned a while ago, wherein is, if it is preceded, if a pronoun is preceded by is and was, we have to use the subjective form. That is why we use this is she. Okay, again, it follows the first rule that we mentioned a while ago, wherein if a pronoun is preceded by is or was, we use subjective form. Okay, just like this one. In this sentence, the pronoun follows a finite form of the verb to be named, namely is. That means the subjective case she is required. For example, another example. This is a problem for Ellen and I to solve. This is a problem for Ellen and me to solve. This is a problem for Ellen and I to solve. This is a problem for Ellen and me to solve. Which do you think is the correct pronoun to be used? Me. Why? Because of the prepositional phrase. For me. Prepositional phrase. So we say that if it is a prepositional phrase, we have to use the objective form. Okay? Get it? For me. For Alan and for me. For Alan, for me. Objective form because of the prepositional phrase for me. Next, me and Jerry are living. Jerry and I are living. Which do you think is a correct statement? Should be I. Why? Because Jerry is subjective. Hence, I should be subjective. Therefore, I, the pronoun I should be used as subjective form in the sentence. Next, it was me or it was I. Okay, take note that uh, the pronoun is preceded by was. So therefore, the correct answer is I. Same rule applies in our previous examples, wherein we say that if it is preceded by was or he, or was or is, we will be using subjective form. Okay, that is why we say it was I, not it was me. Next, she, as the oldest, was the most responsible. Subjective ang function. She and I are cooking together. She, a subjective function. So I'm just summarizing the rule here. A nervous look passed between her and him. Between her and him. Between is a preposition. Between her and him or is in prepositional phrase. Hence, her and him as object of the preposition between. So therefore, we have to use the objective case. This is he. Again, following the rules, is and was. If it's preceded, if the pronoun is preceded by is and was, we'll be using a subjective form. That is why we say this is he. So, so now the song. There are some songs which does not follow the grammar, and again, um, that can be accepted because of the so-called um, other forms of grammar. Yeah, besides that, it's a song. We can accept that. It was he we saw dancing with Lucille. It was he who we saw dancing with Lucille. Again, it's preceded by the verb it was. So we use he. We saw him at the dance hall with Lucille. Okay? Him being the receiver of the action saw. Saw. We saw who? Him. Him being the receiver of the actions. We say objective pronoun performs the function as the receiver of the action. So saw him. Lucille was dancing with him. With him is a prepositional phrase and the object of the preposition must use object objective pronoun. That is why we use with him, not with he, with him. Lucille gave him a meaningful glance. Again, gave here performs, gave here is an action word which requires a receiver of the action. Gave him. Okay, him receives the action gave, performed by the subject Lucille. So this time you must already understand on when to use subjective and objective forms. Let's have more examples and let's study the following examples. So don't say it's a question of him being ready on time. Instead, we have to say it's a question of his being ready on time. Why? Because we are referring to possession, which is being ready on time. It's a question of his being ready on time. Okay, possession, being ready on time. Possession is not always tangible. Let's take note of that. Okay, so don't say it was the teacher's willingness to consider them leaving early that surprised the students most. It sounds correct, but we have to use what is prescribed because the first statement can be acceptable if it is descriptive grammar, but what is prescribed by grammar? So in prescriptive grammar, we say it was the teacher's willingness to consider their leaving early that surprised the students most. So the pronoun isn't functioning as an object, it's doing the job of an adjective by indicating whose early living that we are talking about. So again, the pronoun isn't functioning as an object, it's doing the job of an adjective by indicating whose early living we're talking about. Marge objected to their eating during the ceremony. Again, Marge objected to their eating during the ceremony. So what is being possessed? Or what is the possession here? So we need a possessive adjective to say who's eating Marge objects to. And not to eating in general, but to their eating. So we really need to have a statement or part of the statement that would suggest what is being objected to. And that is the act of their eating during the ceremony. Okay, they're eating. Okay, next. Marge saw them eating during the ceremony. Marge saw them. Now we have object here, which is like in our previous example that suggests possession, they're eating. But this time we're suggesting receiver of the action saw. Okay, Marge sees them, which is the direct object of the sentence, and eating modifies them. It describes what they are doing while Marge happens to see them. Okay, so that's our explanation for that. Again, Marge sees them, which is the direct object of the sentence, and eating modifies them, describes that what they are doing while Marge happens to see them. Bob was irritated by my singing in the shower. By my singing in the shower. We've decided to put a stop to your bickering with your sister. Okay, so the same is true with what we mentioned a while ago that my singing is referring to a possession but not an object by my singing. Meaning to say, the action this the action of singing the song, okay, which is what is being possessed here, or sense of ownership. Next is to stop your bickering with your sister, suggesting that bickering with your sister is owned by you. Okay, that's why you're bickering with your sister. Then we have intensive or reflexive pronouns, how they are used in the sentence. So intensive or reflexive pronoun refers to a single group of pronouns that people often sprinkle around where they're not needed. Let's say myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, yourselves, and themselves. The labels intensive and reflexive are handy because they refer to the only situation in which these pronouns can be correctly used. So sometimes we are using these to give emphasis to something, to an action, to an object, to things. So let us see how they are specifically used on the following examples. So let's say, for example, intensive usage is just like it sounds, adding emphasis just like what I mentioned, or intensity to the subject as a way to reinforce the idea. Again, reinforce the idea that it's that person who's involved and not someone else. Again, you're giving emphasis. Let's say you yourself should go there. We can simply say you should go there. We can simply say that you should go there. But you would like to give emphasis that that this person you must go there. So for the purpose of giving emphasis, you yourself should go there. You can just simply say, I will keep it. I will keep it. You can simply say it on that statement. But if you would like to give emphasis that you you yourself, you yourself, that you uh, as a person will keep it, then you can say, I will keep it myself. As since I would like to give emphasis that myself as a person doing it will be keeping it. Okay. The mountain itself caused his fall. We can say the mountain caused his fall, but we would like to give emphasis that the mountain. So we say the mountain itself caused his fall. So reflexive usage is when the pronoun reflects the action of the verb back onto the subject. Think of it as one greater person or thing who's playing the role of both subject and object in the sentence. So let's say I hit myself in the knee. I hit myself in the knee. So you go back the action towards the action hit. I hit myself in the knee or on the knee. She warned herself not to do it. She warned herself not to do it. So you go back the you reflect the action of the word back onto the subject she. The basic rule with intensive and reflective or reflexive pronoun is that they can only be used in these intensive and reflexive situations. They cannot be used where an ordinary pronoun such as I, me, she, or it would do the job. Okay? For example, thank you for inviting Jack and myself. Okay, for inviting Jack and myself. So we say, thank you for inviting Jack and me. Okay, this is what we meant by this statement that they cannot be used where an ordinary pronoun such as I, me, she, or it would do the job. Okay, we cannot use them to replace the job of the others because intensive and reflexive pronouns have their own function or have their own job. Cannot just insert that in a statement just to replace the job of the others. So just for clarification, for example, thank you for inviting Jack and myself. Okay, so for following the rules, following the format or the structure, we say that um, before the or after we use an objective form for um, prepositional phrase. So just like in our example for inviting Jack and me, which is a prepositional phrase. So we need to have a object of the preposition, which is me. Okay, let's now use me versus myself. So the pronoun myself is not attached in any way to the subject of the sentence here, which is You in that's a sign of trouble. It's not intensifying the subject or reflecting the action of the verb inviting back onto the subject. So I've already mentioned this. It's only just for clarifying the examples that I have mentioned a while ago. So substituting myself when the personal pronoun me will suffice occurs a lot when people think that me sounds funny or that myself sounds more elegant and formal. So that's not the case. Again, we have the correct usage to be used or to be followed or to follow. Okay, so again, let's try the following if you can get them correctly. So you can get a piece of paper and try answering the following items. So take a look at the following examples or items and identify the pronouns and give their forms. So Jack and Jill are going with me down the hill. Okay, so take a look at the following example, identify the pronouns and give their forms. So Jack and Jill are going with me down the hill. So what is or are the pronouns used and what are the forms used? Jack and I are going down the hill with Jill. There's nothing between Laverne and me, I swear. Will you come to dinner with Sandy and me? They have known Larry and me for years. Larry and I have known them for years. Okay? So identify the pronouns on the following sentence and give their forms if they are subjective, objective, or possessive. So, force me is objective, I subjective, me objective, and I for I swear is subjective, you is subjective, me objective, they subjective, Laurie and me objective, Laurie and I subjective, have known them objective, them is subjective. So let's try another one and again get a piece of paper and try answering the following items. So it was me, who ate the entire bag of potato chips while you were out. I think I've already give the example. So give this as an example. For sure, you will get it correctly. Okay. Number two, at Dorothy left her collection of wrestling memorabilia to David and I Army. Okay, getting it right. Then third, between you and I or me, Angela's grammar leaves a great deal to be desired. Okay, get it correctly. Alan was having lunch with Anne and I and me when you heard the news, which is correct, I or me. Warren and I and me haven't spoken since our argument 10 years ago. Is it I or me? Which is correct. They gave Adam and I and me heavy duty umbrellas when we moved to Seattle. Okay. So here are the correct answers. I, me, I, and me. So how many items you got correctly? Okay, so you filled in again your bean with Sir Batch Learning Bean. So thank you very much for taking time listening on the second part of our lecture series on grammar review. For the third part, we'll be focusing on prepositions. So that will be our next discussion. So see you, and again, take time listening on our discussion.